Nevada's state treasurer says his office has made the state a record amount of money off investments. So where will that money go? It's one of several questions I have for the treasurer, who joins us now. Zach Conine, welcome back to Nevada Week.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to be here and always happy to talk about great news.
Okay, so fiscal year 2023, you say your office made more than $214 million in returns on investments, more than 3 times the highest amount ever made in 1 year. How did you do it?
Well, it's a combination of things. It's been a great market for the types of things we want to invest in. Of course, the state treasury at its core is responsible for making sure that we don't lose money as a state, right? That's taxpayer money, it's not ours, and so we're real careful with it. But in this market, and with as good as a job as our team has done, we were able to bring in more than $214 million, which is crazy for state investments, but we're really happy to have it because it'll go to a lot of great places.
Well, and this market is unique in that interest rates are really high, but that benefits you how?
So mostly we invest in fixed income, right? So we are buying treasuries and agencies, other pieces of paper from the federal government and from agencies, and they pay us interest for that. So when interest rates rise, they're actually paying more for those investments than they were in the past. So that plus a combination of really good work on our team to allow us to pick the right ones with the right duration and the right yield has put us in a place where we've hit these record returns.
Is this something that people watching this show can learn from as far as how they can be investing right now?
Well, certainly if you have a team of investment professionals like we do, I think between myself and the rest of the team, we've been doing it for about 100 years. So we encourage anybody to do it. But the most important thing when it comes to investments is, of course, to save money, right? And so if you're paying off your credit cards, if you don't have any debt, and you're able to put a little bit money away for the future, whether it's for retirement or for one of our fantastic college savings programs, there's an opportunity there to plan for what's coming next.
What I'm getting at is that, interest rates for a mortgage about 7% right now.
Sure.
That's not great. That's hurtful. But that leads to higher returns on savings accounts. And so that's where maybe people want to get some money into.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're able to put money into a savings account, that savings account should be, at least as of today, paying a little bit over 5%. So if you're not getting that, you should talk to your bank or maybe move to another one. But the state has the same balance, right? So we issue debt to pay for things like schools and roads and bridges and whatnot. And that debt office is right across the hall from the investment office. So usually when the investment office is happy, the debt office is sad, and vice versa. But our goal is to make sure that we create as much opportunity as potential for Nevadans. So when there is an opportunity in the investment world, we're going to take it.
Okay, so how will the money be spent?
So that money gets distributed out to agencies to do the sorts of work that they are already doing, which means more money for mental health, more money for education, more money for affordable housing, more money for veteran services, more money for WIC and SNAP benefits, more money for all the great work that the state does. And that's more money that can come into those programs without having to raise taxes at all, without having to touch the sales tax, without having to take more at the pump, because we know that Nevada families are hurting. Right? It is expensive to live right now. And if we are able to do a better job in what we do, we can relieve some of the pressure to take more money out of folks' pockets.
Does that money go into the rainy day fund and then it is allocated at some point? How
No,
does it work?
It goes right into those agencies and they can use it. It's already in those agencies, right? We distribute on a quarterly basis. Our last quarter was a pretty good one, better than some of the work in past years. And so we distributed it. It's in those agencies. It's already to work for Nevadans. And eventually, if they don't spend that money, it will roll over into the rainy day fund, which as of today is at its highest level in state history. We're actually about the 10th most secure state from rainy day fund savings in the country.
I guess I'm just confused on when those decisions were made as to where the money would go.
So the money follows decisions that were already made. So it basically pluses up in proportion. So if the state budget, which is a little bit more than $5 billion, if we're spending X on education and half X on veteran services, then X would go of the interest returns would go to education and half X would go to veteran services. So it's formulaic. It kind of follows the money proportionately to the size of the agency.
Okay. If you could choose where that money would go, where would you argue it's needed most right now?
Well, I mean, we have so many needs as a state, right? And the good thing is I don't need to come up with a list of ideas of how to spend that money because Nevadans have already done that. About a year and a half ago, we did a listening tour. We did 123 meetings over 80 days. We met with about 40,000 Nevadans and got their feedback on how we should spend COVID money that was coming in through ARPA and then what we should be thinking about from a state. And those things were obvious, right? They were mental health services, additional doctors, additional teachers, paying teachers more, making sure that we could build more affordable housing, making sure that our social safety nets, things like the unemployment system actually work the way they're supposed to. And so we think the best thing to do with the results of smart investments is to make more smart investments and to build the state that Nevadans deserve to live in.
Some of those needs you mentioned we're going to be talking about, but first, the state is in good financial state, but that necessarily doesn't reflect on the state's economy, right?
Yeah, they're different things, right? So the state is in the strongest financial shape it's been in since its inception. We're in exceptionally good financial shape, which is important because no matter what happens next, we need to make sure that the state is protected so it can continue to provide those services, right? We saw the sorts of cuts that we needed to make during the Great Recession. We saw the sorts of cuts that we needed to make during the pandemic. Those were really hard decisions, and they were hurtful to Nevadans, right? They were the right decision at the time, but it was really hard to get through that. Because of our financial position, we will be in a much better place if we end up in a recession. Will we end up in a recession? I have absolutely no idea. Nobody does. Our job is to be as prepared as possible for anything that can happen. And because of the state's financial position, we are.
You may not have any idea, but do you have an opinion on whether we're headed for a recession?
Oh, I have a lot of opinions. I think that when we look at the rate of consumer spending and the amount of consumer debt that's out there, that is concerning to me. When we look at the difficulty for generations to be able to buy in to a home, as you mentioned earlier, right, with interest rates and just the cost of housing in general, we know that that's one of the biggest ways to create generational wealth. And if we can't create generational wealth, it's hard to continue building the society that we all deserve to live in. And so our focus is on reducing those barriers, right? Building more affordable housing, making sure that when individuals are borrowing money, they're doing it in a way that is as responsible as possible. You know, we have a student loan ombudsperson in our office, right, who works just with borrowers of college loans, who has helped teachers and others get rid of more than $100,000 per loan of these loans through public service loan forgiveness. And when they do that work, that family is then in a better place to start creating generational wealth. And that's our goal.
What about the unemployment rate? Nevada has the highest in the country at 5.3% in July compared to 3.5% nationally.
And when we look at the number of jobs that Nevada has created over the past year, it is remarkable, right? We have had remarkable recovery. That doesn't mean that we have people who aren't out of work right now and we need to place them. In a lot of situations, there are jobs that are available and there are individuals who want to work, but the individual's skill set does not fit into those jobs. So we've got to work on retraining, we've got to work on connecting the jobs with the individuals.
Is that something your office does?
You know, we try to fund it, right? And so our office, that $214 million, the $337 million in investment returns we've made since I became treasurer, which happens to be a record, that's all money that can be used to support those programs. And what we worry about is how do we pay for it, right? So during the last legislative session, we worked on two bills, one that would create a fund to help teachers that start in CCSD, right? Just like my daughter over there, if she wants to be a teacher, there's going to be a fund there so that as she grows up, she can start taking classes in high school, move from high school to college directly into a program, and then if she stays and teaches in the state of Nevada, she isn't going to have a single dollar of student loans. Right? We did the same program for medical professionals using unclaimed property dollars that we knew we couldn't return, $2.5 million a year, the first program of its type with permanent funding to go and help put doctors and nurses and mental health care professionals into the communities where they need them the most. We can help pay for this thing, and by paying for it, we're able to create a pipeline, and by creating a pipeline, hopefully in the long term, we can get those individuals here.
How do you get the word out about that past program you just talked about?
Well, the great thing about all of our student loan programs, right? Prepaid tuition is a great example of this. On our 25th year of prepaid tuition, we will be hitting you up to get a contract later, and every time I see you. That program, everyone who uses it is an acolyte of that program, right? Our best commercials are the people who have used it and found that it's such a great way to save money. And that's the same with all of our programs, right? When we start a program like that, the people who use it, we try to get the word out through everybody we can, but the people who use it through programs like this, the people who use it then go and spend as much time as they can talking about it because they're all so good.
And you're talking about the baby that I just had.
I am.
So when is it that I can register now?
From
already?
the hospital, yeah. I mean, we try to go into the hospital and suggest, but most new parents are doing with other things right at the beginning. So we give them a couple of weeks before we start harassing them. But yes, you can start a prepaid tuition contract when the child is born.
And by the time he graduates high school?
By the time he graduates high school, he will have his college at UNR or UNLV paid for, and if he chooses to go somewhere else, Harvard, not a great choice. Cornell, great choice. If he goes to some other school, we'll pay for the value of UNR or UNLV at that time. And so we have families who have children right now going to college, who bought those programs when they were young, when they were your son's age, who have saved $20,000 on college because they made that investment early.
And how does it work? Is it a monthly payment that you're making to this fund?
We are super flexible. You can make a one-time payment, you can pay monthly, you can pay monthly for a shorter period of time, or you can pay monthly every month between now and when that child turns 18. We have tons of different plans.
You brought your 9-year-old daughter in today.
I
She's
did.
sitting off set, and she's a beneficiary of this program.
Look, in the Treasury, we believe very strongly that we should walk the walk, and if we're going to talk the talk. And so Ruby has a prepaid tuition plan. Her brothers Teddy and Ford have prepaid tuition plans, and we can move them between children, right? So Ruby has a 4-year plan, but if she doesn't use it all because she's going to get scholarships, because you're going to get scholarships, then she's able to move that to her brothers. And if her brothers, one of them might join the circus, and so if one of them joins the circus and the other one doesn't, then they can use those other 2 years. They're exceptionally flexible for families, and we think that's really important.
Hey, joining the circus is a real thing in Las Vegas.
Absolutely is.
I want to talk about affordable housing. Last time we had you on about a year ago, we talked about the designation of $500 million in ARPA funds for the creation of about 2,500 affordable housing units. The National Low Income Housing Coalition says that Nevada lacks about 84,000 units for extremely low income renters. So what else is being done to fill that need?
So we're making smart investments, and we're making those investments in a way that Nevada hasn't done in the past. We are bringing in partners and money from outside the state. We are attracting pension capital and investment capital to come build. You know, through the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank, which we sort of recreated a few years back, and I chair, it's in our office, we are going to invest about $20 million into affordable housing, which is important. But that $20 million is going to be matched 9-to-1 by an investor coming in from out of the state, because we've created a vehicle for them to do it. And we're also bringing in other partners. We have some amazing partners who build affordable housing in Southern Nevada, but there's only so much affordable housing that can be built with the companies that are here. So we're bringing in new companies from out of the state to bring their ideas in order to build as much housing as humanly possible, because that is the solution to the affordable housing crisis, right? The most effective solution is to build more, to build up, to build it in different places, but places that are attached to services, and not just in Southern Nevada, right? We are focused on Northern Nevada, we're focused on rural Nevada. We need to make sure that everyone has a place to live. Housing is a human right, and it is something where we can literally throw money at the problem effectively, and so we should.
That 20 million, which you say will be matched, can you estimate how many units that will create?
About 6,000 by the time we're done.
That's hard,
Yeah.
when you know that 84,000 is what the goal is.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in government, we should always make sure not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? There is no plan to get 80,000 units up in 1 year, but if we get 6,000 units up in 1 year and 10,000 the next and 20,000 the year after that, we will continue to do better and continue to chip away at this problem.
And the 6,000 units, when would they be available, would you estimate?
Oh, about 12 to 18 months from today.
Okay. The $380 million in public funding that the state approved for the construction of an A's baseball stadium on the Las Vegas Strip, some argued that could be spent on housing, education, mental health. Why did you support giving that money to an underperforming baseball team whose owner is already a billionaire?
Yeah, so we didn't give the money to an underperforming baseball team. We gave the money to build an asset that will be owned by the state of Nevada. It will be owned by the county. It will be a public asset, just like Raiders Stadium is. And I should mention that all the projections for Raiders Stadium were grossly undervalued. We've been doing exceptionally well there, and we've created an asset that has brought all sorts of interesting things to town, including Taylor Swift, right? Who brought in millions of dollars
That's
to
your
our
favorite
economy.
example.
Well, it's her favorite example. So we've brought in all of these shows that we wouldn't have been able to bring before. The lifeblood of Southern Nevada, as we try to diversify, is tourism. So when we're able to put more into the top of that, we know that Southern Nevada is the world's best mousetrap for extracting money out of willing adults who come to town. And we should make sure that we have as many of those willing adults as possible. Now, we also did, and this is where I came in, structured that deal in such a way that Nevada was protected. Unlike the Raiders deal, the state of Nevada actually gets paid back if the stadium performs. In the Raiders deal, it just stays within the stadium. We made sure that no public money would go in until Mr. Fisher and the rest of that team has invested and committed more than $1 billion in building the stadium, right? So we made sure that Nevada was protected in this. I think there's an absolutely reasonable argument to say that the state should or shouldn't be involved in economic development, but if we are going to be involved in economic development, and I think we should, those deals need to be as good as possible for Nevadans, and this deal is.
How confident are you in John Fisher, the owner of the A's, ability to come up with that money?
We are confident in John Fisher's ability to come up with that money, but we're also confident that we've structured a deal that says if he doesn't, it doesn't cost us anything. All we've done is waste the time talking about it.
Okay, on the note of education, the money that the legislature approved for teacher raises, the Clark County School District right now is arguing, hey, that's one-time money that in a couple of years, we don't know if the legislature is going to approve that again. So how are we supposed to fund these raises, not knowing if we'll have the money to fund them after the 2 years is up? Did you support that bill, and do you understand that argument from a financial solvency standpoint?
Yeah, I did support that bill. I think we need to pay teachers more, and I think it's frustrating that every time we try to pay teachers more, there's this back and forth, which really doesn't help the teachers and really doesn't help the kids. And I've got 3 kids in the Clark County School District, only 2 today, but I've got 3 kids in the Clark County School District, and they are not benefited by this argument. They're not benefited by this back and forth, right? We need to get that money in the classrooms. The reason why, as we understand it, the legislature did it that way is because in past, when dollars have gone to the school district, they haven't made it to the classroom. And so they wanted to do something different so that those dollars made it to the teachers that they were supposed to go to. Every budget the state of Nevada passes is a 2-year budget, every single one. And we've seen that there have been times where we've had to make cuts because of recession or COVID or anything else. That money is just as available for raises as any other money that comes out of the state of Nevada. And so I would hope that they can find a solution where that money can get into teachers' pockets, and frankly, teachers can get back to doing the thing that they should be doing and that they're great at, which is teaching our kids.
But from a financial standpoint, you're not supposed to spend the money you don't have. So how can you commit to a raise longer than 2 years when you've only been given money for 2 years?
You're only ever given money for 2 years. That's the nature of our budget, right? Our budget is a 2-year budget because we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. I would argue that we should have a budget every year as opposed to every 2 years, but that's a specific to Nevada situation. Because we have a 2-year budget, you make plans on a 2-year thing, and you understand that the legislature and teachers and the political process is going to make sure that teachers are protected if there is some sort of other downturn. But that money and the other money are the same money when it comes to a 2-year solvency thing.
There's so much more we could talk about, but we have run out of time. State Treasurer Zach Conine, thank you for joining Nevada Week.